Michael Bateman of the well-known Bateman clan. Michael married to Shirley, is farming in Crookstown, and over 15 years has shown amazing growth in the sense he's, I think, he's bought 2 or 3 farms. I think he was about 4 leased and milking 600 cows now. And Michael was in Missouri, I think, on a Positive Farmers tour in 2017. And he saw something in practice of rearing heifer calves, and he decided to test it out and start to see how he got on himself. So he's going to give us a summary now of his findings to date. Thanks, Michael.
Thanks, Mike. Look, to start, I'd like to thank the Positive Farmers Committee for inviting me here to speak today. The title of the presentation is Calf Rearing in Ireland, Do We Need to Think Again? As Mike has said, Michael Bateman, married to Shirley, 4 kids, farming 20 miles west of here, currently milking 625 cows on a 207-acre milking platform. 80% of that platform is leased. We're talking about rearing calves this morning. We rear about 250 replacements each year, or 205 replacements each year. Our aim, the replacements are reared by the contract rearer from 3 months of age, and our aim is to have the calves at 100 kilos plus going there and have them in good form and ready to thrive. And it's the first 3 months rearing that I'm going to concentrate on this morning when I'm talking through this slide. Sorry now. Oops. Right. So as Michael said, I was on a trip to Missouri in 2016 and we were visiting farms and so forth. One of the farms we visited was the farm of Niall Murphy and Gary Nolan. And we walked into a paddock and there was a very good bunch of calves. And the other noticeable thing about the calves was there was a big ration track in the corner and they were getting lots of ration. And I thought that anybody whose name ended with Murphy was allergic to ration. So I said, we'll have to ask a few more questions here and so forth. And the questions went round. And there was after further discussion and so forth, there was a different approach being taken to the calves in the farm, and we trashed it through and so forth. So look, the calves looked real good to me. They were better calves. The system outlined said that they'd be easier managed, there was less labour involved, and they were being reared cheaper. So the heading on the page, I left that field saying, do I need to think again on my calf rearing? So what have we done? We've changed from rearing calves and milk until they're 75 to 85 kilos. I suppose it could be a bit of a legacy from a milk quota scenario where we had loads of milk and couldn't send it to the creamery, and we really wanted to rear good calves, and we had the quad and the tank behind us, and we were pumping lots of milk into calves because this was nearly cheap, nearly free. And what have we changed to? And very quickly, and we'll go through it in more detail, we've changed to reducing the amount of milk being fed and trying to have calves weaned at 35 to 40 days of age and feeding them ad lib ration to get them to the weaning weight of 85 to 90 kilos when they're heading for the contract rearer in mid-May. I just want to take a slight step back and look at some of the things about contract rearing that we've learned, or heifer rearing, that we've learned over the last 20 years that I wasn't prepared to compromise on. And look, plenty of research. They have to get this colostrum early on, and this has to be done. Heifers need to reach their bulling weight, 60% of their mature weight at bulling, which in my case, having done the weighing of the cows and so forth, we have identified at about 310 to 315 at bulling, giving us a mature cow of about 520 kilos. There's plenty of Tagus research out there that says that if you're 20 kilos behind the bulling weight, you lose 20 kilos of milk solids every lactation going forward. So it is important to hit that. The next point there is touching on what we've been talking about there for the last 5 minutes. 18% replacement rate is a goal of mine. I'm not claiming I'm anywhere near it. I'm the last 30 years increasing cow numbers across the Batemans and so forth, and we've kept every cow, and our replacement rate sometimes is lower, and then we had infertility problems, and sometimes it's higher. But I do remember Pat Dillon telling me 30 years ago that 18% was the ideal replacement to maximise genetic gain within the herd and yet have a mature herd giving us the output that we require. My last point, these heifers are our best genetics. They're expensive to rear, and it is important that they're done right. And to me, it is very important that they're in position to go and calf early so as I can breed from them and have them as the mothers of the next generation and increase the genetic gain as quickly as I can within the herd. So what does the new system look like? Again, 3 litres of colostrum the first 2 hours of life. There's a rule on my farm that every calf is stomach tubed with 3 litres of milk as soon as you see them. And I suppose that's AHI 321, 3 litres of colostrum, of first colostrum in the first 2 hours. The calves are then grouped in pens of 10. They're fed with a milk bar feeder, and we have a portable tank that goes behind the quad with a metered pump on it, and you come up and you pump in your 20 litres of milk and you feed your calves. The calves get 2 litres of milk morning and evening for the first 4 weeks. They have ad lib ration from day 1 and access to plenty of fresh water. Silage is introduced at day 21 to give them a small bit of use to forage. From day 28, they're moved to once a day feeding, and we stick with the 2 litres of milk. So we don't increase the thing, 2 litres of milk. And to me, I was very surprised by keeping the amount of milk we were feeding low. The calves are up eating the most of a kilo ration at that stage, and when you reduce it to once a day feeding, they start to eat quite a bit more ration. Calves are weaned off milk at around 6 weeks of age, at which time they go to grass. One of the big benefits for me was that instead of having a 40 teat calf feeder behind the quad and calves in groups of 40 and having 5 or 6 groups of calves spread all around the farm and driving around all day in the quad feeding them, we now have the calves in one paddock. They're fed with the ad lib calf feeder that's in the corner of the picture there. It's loaded up with the front loader of the bucket of ration into it every day, and the calves are in a group of 150 calves. Calves are then weaned at roughly 100 kilos at 90 to 100 days of age. And to my amazement, some of the calves are eating up to 3 and 4 kilos of ration at that stage. So we do weigh the calves at that stage every 10 days because it gets wicked expensive. If you let calves on ad lib ration and you don't start weaning them off, they eat an awful lot of ration out at 3 months of age and so forth. So we do weigh them every 10 days. We whip them off the feeder at that stage, send them to the contract rearer. He feeds them a kilo to 1.5 kilos of ration for the first 10 days to a fortnight while they're up there, just to adjust them back to grass. And they are on grass only then from roughly the 1st of June, the 5th of June on. This is a small bit of cheating that I've done. This comes from the Dairy Gold Milk Matters publishment. It just shows 3 rumens on 6-week-old calves that have been fed different diets, and it backs up a small bit, and I'm stressing, there's not maybe a lot of research around this, but this is a small bit. Calves on milk only, very underdeveloped rumen. Calves on milk and straw or milk and hay, very underdeveloped rumen. Calves on milk and concentrates, the rumen is developing, and they're in a better position to make the transition onto meal and grass going forward. Just to go back to the old system and what are the differences. So again, the colostrum is the same. We were feeding 2.5 litres of milk twice a day for the first 3 weeks. We were feeding 4 litres of milk until they were weaned after that. Ration was introduced at day 1, but they weren't eating a lot of ration when we were giving them plenty of milk. Calves were going to grass in mid-March, calf feeder behind the quad, getting plenty of milk, getting the 4 litres of milk until such time as they reached their weaning weight at 80 to 90 days of 80 to 100 kilos. And there was a lot of work in this system of driving around paddocks, and if you had to shift 4 or 5 bundles of calves to give them fresh grass and so forth, it was labour intensive in my view. We'd be then trying to feed them a small bit of ration to make the transition from milk to grass on bits and pieces, and you'd have calf feeders out into the field and you'd be throwing a bit of ration into it, and the ration would be getting wet and bits and pieces like that. And then when they'd be weaned, they were moved to the contract rearer. So why the change, and what are the benefits? Look, cow numbers have increased. The whole numbers of calves we're rearing has increased. We use all dairy AI on our dairy semen on our herd. We AI for 3 or 4 weeks, and then dairy stock bulls after that. So every calf is reared. So we were rearing 300 calves. There was a lot of work in it. You had a lot of bunches of calves around the place and so forth. Grassland management is much easier in this system. You have the big feeder in the corner of the field. You have 150 calves in the paddock. You give them a strip of grass every second day for a week. Then you pick up the feeder with the loader, move it to the next paddock, and you have your calves sorted. The calves are much healthier. I think the old system, we were pushing calves too hard. We had soft calves. The liquid portion of what's coming out the back end was a lot more liquid. It's a lot drier under the new system. Just one figure I did there, we lost 4 calves out of 300 this year over 4 days of age. So we do have losses around calving, but once we get up and running, losses have been very small. The milk can be sold, and I'll come to the figures in a minute and we'll look at them, but before the milk, I was used to paying quota, so it was nearly a charge on me if I didn't feed the calves the milk. It would end up as quota. Now the milk is worth 40 cents a litre to sell. The feeder is bird proof. You can see there in the corner, there's the flap and the feeder inside in the picture. And to me, it's a lot cleaner, and you don't have the birds flying in and out of it and so forth. And I'll go through the figures in a minute. 35 to 40 euros a calf cheaper, I reckon. And in my system, that's somewhere between 8 and 10,000 of a saving on the farm. So just a small bit on the results and bits and pieces. And again, I stress this is my farm. No science, no Brendan Horn running behind me and so forth, making sure everything is sorted. I am part of the Moore Park contract rearing trial. So they have been on farm weighing the calves and taking their temperatures and doing swabs and so forth. Anecdotally and so forth, they said to me, leaving the farm, that that no calf had a temperature, 2 calves had navels, and that they were struggling to find calves to swab. They had no problem in other places finding lots of sick calves to swab to see what was there. They swabbed 10 calves in my place and the results all came back negative. And I know I'm 2 weeks out from calving and shouldn't be talking about this, because when you say things like this in public, it could just haunt you. They weighed the calves again in October. They were 205 kilos on average on the 10th of October. We would always weigh the calves coming up to housing and batch them accordingly. The calves this year the last 2 years, and I'm 2 years with the new system, are 5 kilos heavier than they have been in previous years. So to me, there's no change in the calves, maybe slightly better, but we are achieving the results that we have been achieving with the calves all along. The fertility, so the first lot of calves we did reared this way, so there's only 1 year's calves, 2017 calves, bulled in 2018, 204 calves went to the bull. We had 8 empty out of the 204. We do a synchronization program with the heifers, so we AI them for 5 or 6 days, synchronize them, AI them, and then let out the bulls. And we have 157 of this year's scanned in calf in the first 11 days, which is 77% of the heifers are in calf in the first 11 days. So they'll be calving a week before the cows, so we'll be busy next week. And the 42-day in calf rate is we have 189 out of the 204 in calf in the first 6 weeks. That's as good as we've ever done. I'm not putting it down to the system or anything else. All I'm saying is that we've achieved fertility as good as or better than what we've ever done before. The figures, so on the old system, the calves were getting 5 litres of milk for 70 days, or they were drinking up to 350 litres of milk. The 40 cents a litre that I'm using is the price we received this year for our March milk. So we were at 31.5 cent base price in Dairygold, and my solids, we got over 40 cents a litre for our March milk, and we got a cent or two a litre more for February milk. So I'm using 40 cents a litre there, so that's 140 euros for milk on the old system. They weren't eating much ration, they were eating maybe 35 to 40 kilos of ration. I'm charging that at 34 cents a kilo and making around 12 or 13 euros for the milk in the old system. Total on the old system, 152. On the new system, they're getting 4 litres of milk for 35 days, so they're getting 4 litres for 3 weeks and 2 litres for, they're drinking about 140 litres of milk. Again, charged that at 40 cents a litre, it works out at 56 euros. They're getting a heck of a lot more ration, they're eating 165 kilos of ration and more than it. At the 34 cents a kilo, that works out at the 56 euros also. I haven't costed in anything for the saving in labour or the saving in straw, the bed's been drier and so forth. People would debate and so forth. The difference is 40 euros a calf in rearing costs. Rearing, keeping 200 calves and rearing close on 300 calves, it comes to 8,000 to 10,000 euros of a saving on my farm. A couple of the disadvantages of the new system. You have a ration bill that you never had before. I suppose when you were taking milk out of the bottom of the tank to feed calves, you didn't overly notice the bill. We have a ration bill for calves now running into 12 to 14,000. Calves don't follow the feeder. It was one of the big beauties of the milk cart behind the quad was you drove into the paddock, the calves all chased you, and you could shift them for a mile and they'd chase you flying. You don't have that system. They're all lying down. And that point is point 3 as well. It's slightly harder to see the sick calf because when you came with the milk to feed the calves, if they didn't come to the feeder, you said, well, we better see after that calf and see what's wrong. Now you go into the paddock and the calves are all lying down, the feeder is full of ration and they have no interest in coming to see you and so forth. Next point, ad lib is ad lib, and that means there has to be ration in front of the calves at all time. And if, like we had one day, we forgot to feed them, you will have sick calves when you put them back on ad lib a couple of days later. Laminitis is a question I get asked about. We've had 2 or 3 cases of laminitis. Nothing serious. They have grown out of it again, but again, ad lib is ad lib, and then the ration needs to be kept to them. My conclusions, I'm very happy with the system. It's ticking the boxes for me. My calves are as good, if not better, than what they were in the old system. It's certainly easier managed. The labour is a lot less. You can move the labour to the middle of the day. There's no pressure on running out with the feeder and getting jobs done during the day. The ration feeder can actually feed them for 2 days, so you can fill up on a Saturday evening and not have to go back to fill the ration until Sunday morning or Monday morning. To my way of thinking, it's cheaper, but I do qualify all that, but it does merit more research, and it does merit having a better look at the costs and so forth. These are my figures, and I'm stressing that. So look, thank you very much. I'm happy to answer questions as best I can, and we'll work from there.
So, calves as good, 40 euros saving, the less labour, good health, we'll say. The four calves did over, out of 300, we'll say that I think would be pretty good. And by the way, the results are identical with what Niall is getting out in Missouri. So it's the... and by the way, Niall would have copied in his turn, we'll say, from what beef farmers are doing in Hawke's Bay, New Zealand. Mike, could I, just while your hand's gone up, could I just throw a question at you that when you were sort of saying, did you actually pay more attention to sort of, cleaning out in the early days in terms of meal? We'll say that just collecting any meal, we'll say, that's left over and giving them fresh meal like every day, to the young calves.
So the rule in our house or in our yard is twice a week the ration trucks are emptied. Yeah. Throw that to a few cold cows or whatever, and make sure the ration is reasonably clean. Yeah. The other one that was pointed out to me by a beef farmer who was finishing ad lib cattle was the fresh water truck needs to be cleaned out, and he's adamant he cleans his every day, so we try to clean ours twice a week. We're always behind the posse. Yeah. But the ration, if you have calves on ad lib ration, they'll drop a bit of ration into the fresh water trucks, and it'll sour their fresh water trucks. So a small bit of detail there, but that's no more than what we were doing anyway. We were trying to be reasonably good at it.
Okay. Questions? Liam in the front centre, and could you have hands up? We'll say the next question.
What kind of ration we are feeding? What kind of ration we are feeding, and was it the same ration all the way through? And the ones that got laminitis, we are keeping them as replacements, or we are selling them on?
So firstly, the two cattle that got laminitis were culled. I imagine I could be having them for dinner. They'll end up in the freezer. The first half of the question, we're using Dairy Gold beef lab, or calf pride, sorry, costing 340 euros a tonne. I've mentioned it to a couple of people, and there could be bits around the protein levels and bits and pieces for calves. That's why I think the research needs to be done a small bit better. I've got Niall and Gary's system, implemented it in my place roughly, and there is a bit there in that. The amount of protein and the type of protein calves get, there's research done on it, and maybe I need to follow that a small bit better.
Yeah, over on the left.
Hello, Michael. John Payne, County Longford. Is it hard to train the calves on the feeder outside with the bird flaps on them? Do they find it easy enough, or do you have to try and push them in or anything like that?
So the calves are used to eating the ration inside. They're looking for ration. The first day I turn the bird flap up and leave it open, and after that we put it down, and it hasn't been an issue, John.
Yeah. And a second question, sorry. Do you ever consider milk powder with their disease issue benefits with milk powder? And would you be able to go once a day sooner if you were using milk powder?
So to me, there's always a certain amount of waste milk around the yard, and I always I have an aversion to feeding calves on milk powder, in that I don't think the milk powder rears them as well. Having said that, my brother rears them on milk powder, and he's followed a system quite close to this last year, and he's very happy with it. Now he feeds them ad lib milk powder for the first fortnight or 3 weeks, and then moves them off the milk powder to 2 litres and onto the ration at that stage. So slight differences, but yeah. I don't see any reason why milk powder is as good as milk in lots of cases. I don't see any reason why it wouldn't work.
Yeah, next question. Yeah, way down the left. And hands up will say that you must have some questions because...
Yeah, just a question, Jerry Craig. We had guys involved in the calf to beef system for a number of years there, and measuring that was going on, and we sort of had a group got into contract rearing then, and we were looking at this, and the big argument with the milk replacer companies was essentially that, you know, to the bull calves you give a vegetable protein, with the dairy calves you had to give an animal protein source, so you were given a higher spec milk replacer, and you could clearly see the difference in the growth of the calves. In the actual frames of the calves, they might be any heavier, but the frames of the calves were taller. And there certainly want to be more. No, it's hard to argue with your breeding figures, you know, and the system you're running is probably very efficient, but certainly where you'd have dairy systems maybe coming under a greater immunity challenge, I wonder would it stand up as well. And I'd say that what would certainly want to be a little bit more work when you start replacing animal protein, which with vegetable protein or plant protein, you certainly could come under pressure where you'd have an immune threat. And I think certainly it needs to be looked at a little more clearer. Yeah, and just on heights of animals or wither heights, did you do any measurements on that?
So I agree with you. Certainly there is more work needs to be done on that sort of thing. My calves are definitely healthier the last 2 years than they have been other years. In terms of the heights of animals and so forth, I'm not down that road anyway. That's beyond my scope. And 2 years in, it'll be interesting to see how the ones in milk now this year and whether there'll be a difference there and so forth.
Okay, here first and then here.
Tom Mallison, Dorset. 2 questions. Is there a minimum weight at which you wean them off the milk? And are you weaning and turning them out on the same day?
So, no, there's not a minimum weight. But look, we look in the pen, and if there's one behind where we'd like him to be, he could be dropped back into the next pen. No problem. We would have a range of calves in that we are a crossbred herd, and we'd have some Friesians and some Jerseys. There's no minimum weight at coming off the milk. 80 kilos is the minimum weight coming off the ration. We want these calves up and running and going well before we take them off the ration, that when they go to the contract rearer, they're going on grass only, and they're moving on from there. I missed the second half of the question. Yes, yeah. Depending on the day. Obviously, if it's a bad day, but we try to pick a reasonably fine spell of weather coming. And one of the other things with the new system is I have brought calves back in. So you have all the calves into one bundle, and it's not a huge job to run them back into the empty sheds if there's a real bad spell of weather coming. Whereas in the old system, you had 5 bundles of calves out in the field, and if you brought them in and tried to keep them in their own bundles and bits and pieces, there was a lot of work on it, and they were left outside. Whereas now, if there is real bad weather, and look, I'm talking about 2 inches of rain and cold weather. I have no issue with cold weather, and I have no issue with wet weather. I have an issue with wet and cold weather letting young calves out.
Yeah. Okay.
Robin Blatchford from Wiltshire. What measures do you what measures do you take against yonis? You haven't really sort of discussed disease and that. It's more been on the financial side, but it's a bit of an issue back over there. So I don't know what it's like in Ireland.
So I have the herd tested for yonis. We have a very low level of readings on the tests, and I have my head in the sand.
Yeah, it's just, I just make a comment, will say that Animal Health Ireland are just introducing an anti-ionase programme, and they think it'll be difficult and it'll take a long, long time, but it is being introduced in the very near future. Yeah, up in the front, Mary. Yeah, is there? Yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
Damien.
Mike, when the calves go to grass and they're on ration, what's your rotation like? How often are they moving field paddock to paddock? Have you a rotation for them or a set area, or are you just?
So I'm aiming at grass covers of 800 to 1,000. They'll go into the paddock. They'll get 8 to 10 days in it. We'll strip the paddock across. They'll get fresh grass every 2 to 3 days, and then we'll go on and we'll find another paddock that has a cover of 800 to 1,000 in it.
Okay, so you're keeping fresh grass to them basically every 2 to 3
fresh
days?
Fresh grass. The goal is that they're starting to get used to the grass, and that when we take them off the ration, that they're well capable of grazing grass at that stage.
And you're not forcing them down low covers as they go, or you push them same as you would cows, or what?
Certainly not pushing them hard, Damien, no. If they're grazing out to 200-300s, it's fine by me. Tidy that paddock up with the
I think
at a later date.
Yeah, Justin, yeah.
Just slightly off it, and to tie in with the voluntary culling, what's your total cost from day one to day of calving for your replacement, not including the calf value?
Not including calf value. I've done the figure a couple of times. I'm around 1,100. So
excellent.
Yeah. So it is costing 1,400 to rear the calves. I said at the start we're rearing 205 calves. We want a 20% replacement rate, which is only 130. I have 70 or 80 to sell every year, and if I can break even with the contract rearer on them, selling them in October, November time, that's my goal. So that's why I have the figures done.
The 1,100 includes everything?
1,100 includes everything bar the price of the calf.
Thanks.
And my figures will be reasonably good because it's contract rearer from 3 months of age, so I know exactly what it's costing me from the first 3 months on.
I'm sorry, that's including the first couple of months it is?
Yes.
And yourself?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, Aidan.
I have a statement to make first and then a question. You're not actually once a day feeding calves. You're feeding milk once a day. They've ad lib access to feed from day 0.
Yeah.
The second thing, based on that then, have you considered going once a day sooner? I was just back from New Zealand. Only one of the farms I visited was feeding milk twice a day to calves from day 0.
I'll admit, Brendan, or Aidan, 10 years ago, we were once a day feeding from day 0. I wouldn't have been once a day feeding, lots of milk and so forth. Maybe too much pressure on the calf, I think. And also, we are in this world where the environment is now looking at us, and it's no longer acceptable to do that, Aidan, so we'll try to play our part.
Yeah, I'd probably start to say that Niall does once a day from the word go, once a day of milk, once a day of meal. So the calf, as you said, is fed twice a day. Extreme care will say to clean up the meal, will say that anything that's left after 24 hours is actually collected up, will say that. James Doherty, sorry, you're somewhere around the place. What the financial benefits are the same. Have you, James, you there? Yeah. Could somebody get a? Yeah. No, we'll go down to James for a sec. Okay, question thereafter. James is on the wide left over there. Yeah, James. In terms of health for heifer calves that are actually born alive, in terms of just on the welfare side, what sort of mortality would there be? Niall is rearing 400 or 500 heifer calves. What sort of mortality is he getting?
You're putting me in the spot now, Mike, but it'd be very low rates of mortality. Michael, there's 2%, so I'd say we're as low as that anyway. Yeah.
Okay. So practical effects.
Rearing big numbers, yeah, it's very easy. So it only takes a few hours in the morning, and it can be pushed back into later in the day, as Michael said. So that's kind of the main benefit of it. And I suppose a calf's not with the cow anyway, so once a day, twice a day feeding, it's not natural anyway, so there's no real difference in it really.
It takes a lot of pressure off a dairy farm if you're not feeding calves at each end of the day, which are the busy parts of the day, and you can shift it into a different area of the day. It's less labour, but it's also a less busy time of the day,
Yeah, that's very true. Like, can get them off the farm there in May, kind of frees everybody up for summer jobs and everything. So it's very effective. Yeah,
I mean, I judge welfare, in terms of the survival rate of calves. Will say how well they do, all those kind of things, and
there's no real issues with any health that we can see anyway, compared to twice a day.
Yeah, we've a couple of more questions. We can take 3 or 4 more.
Can I?
Yeah.
How do you think this fits with the public perception, particularly when you asked about grass-fed animals, and you're not feeding them grass very much? And also, John Roach was talking about, taking calves off cows young, and then now you're actually weaning them off milk really young.
So, to me, the amount of grass they're eating in the first 3 months isn't different. Before they were getting milk, and now they're getting ration. So there's not a big difference in the amount of grass they're eating over the first 3 months. And my calves are on grass only then, right through from 3 months of age until the calf at 24 months of age. The bottom 20% may get a bit of ration over the first winter if they're underweight. Again, you'll have to remind me of the second half of the question.
Public perception of, weaning calves off milk young.
To me, the calves are equally as good, equally as healthy.
That's not what public care about, is it? It's what they feel. They don't like the calves coming off the cows, let alone not having milk as babies.
So these are the issues we have to deal with, and we have work on that one. Yeah. I don't have the answer to that.
David?
Michael, it's just 2 on transition. You introduce a bit of silage to young calves. Do you still offer a little bit of silage when they first go out into the paddocks? And then weaning the calves off the ad-lib feed, how do you offer them a reduced amount of concentrate over that 2 to 3 week period when you get them onto a grass-only ration? Having them being used to going to an ad-lib feeder, do you just give them more trough space and offer them less feed?
So correct. When we're moving off the ad-lib, they go back to 1.5 kilos. We don't feed them for the first day, and they come running to the truck then after that. They lick up the ration in 20 minutes, and they're fed 1.5 kilos for the 3 weeks, and then they're weaned off. The transition silage offered from 3 weeks of age in the truck, and when they go to grass, I don't put silage in the field.
Okay.
Michael, after they're fed the colostrum, are they fed for the first 5 days after that? Are they fed a pooled version of the milk, or is it kind of divided out?
So first colostrum is kept for newborn calves. After that, they get colostrum from the colostrum mob, second and third milkings, and it is pooled.
It's all pooled from day two.
All pooled from day 2 on, yeah.
Okay. And do you find any trouble with scour or anything with that?
To me, that's one of the big benefits. You're not feeding them the amounts of milk that you were before, and the scouring is a way less. You don't have a big issue with scour. You're keeping down the amount of milk and trying to encourage the eating of the ration.
I don't know if there's any more park research in it, Brendan will say, but there is American research that when you lower the quantity of milk, that you tend to get less scours, etc.
I'm not familiar with it, Mike. I'm
not familiar with it. Okay. Have we? Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, two very good presentations I thought there earlier. So Maybe just two questions, one for Michael and maybe one for Oliver.
Yeah.
Michael, a very good paper, I think, on maybe a new way of rearing calves. Could you talk about the meal? Like, is it a muesli that you start off feeding the calves with? And if you change from a muesli to a nut, is there a pullback in the calves? And the other part of that is, do you get it treated with, say, for coccidiosis? Because if you're feeding a lot of ration, you're going to have a lot of birds probably. They probably can't get at it, but you know, if you want to have a preventer, do you get that treated with it? And say the second question then would maybe to Oliver. I mean, very interesting all this research that's going on about the efficiency of converting from weight to the kilos of solids. And to me, I suppose you can put up the figures and you can make the figures do anything. You know, we can pick 3 bull sires from each, the Jersey, Cross, or the Frisian, and we can say one is better than the other. But I suppose we need whole herd analysis in order to prove the theory probably right. And Oliver say, if you have 3 herds and you've identified the good cows that are, say, 30% better than the others, would you consider putting all those cows in one herd and do a comparison then on a whole year basis to see which herd outperforms the other? Or does the lower herd actually come up then because the higher pecking order ones are gone to another herd?
So going back to the first question, I'm not sure it's new, Robert. I think if you asked my father, he was weaning calves at 42 days of age 30 years ago. I think the wheel is just going back around a bit. It's Dairy Gold Calf Pride, and it's the nut farm, and it's from day one in the nuts. I find if you put the blooming muesli in the house, you'll attract the crows. The nut doesn't attract the crows, so we just go straight with the nut. The coccidiosis, we're treating with bay cocks at 3 months of age before they go to the contract rear. It used to be a problem. It still is a bit of a problem, so we're covering it. Try to keep them healthy, try to be ahead of the posse rather than behind the posse.
Yeah. I can confirm, Robert, by the way, that being another greybeard will say that, that prior to quotas coming in, that 42 weeks weaning was pretty standard. Sorry, days, sorry, yeah. Thank you, thanks.
Yeah, on my side of it there, look, I suppose it is all new to us, all the data we're correlating, and yeah, I suppose you could put the better efficient cows into each herd, but look, logistically, I'm probably not going to do that. I will, like, going forward, probably will separate it back. It was just for today, we'll put them all together. Like, I will bring it back to each herd and try and take out the bottom 10% of each herd going forward. Just on the breeds then, like, we just looked at, on this thing, we looked at it, the top 10% of the cows. I think there was about, I think it was 22 Jersey crosses in it and 3 black and whites, and for the other one, on the lowest 10%, there was 2 Jersey crosses in it, just on the breed. So the breed has a massive effect, it seems. But look, again, it's early days of this whole thing. There's probably a lot more research to be done on this. So.
Okay. Any last question? Okay. Oh, one up the front. Have we?
Thank you. With our social contract changing, pressures from outside, do you think we'll even be allowed to take calves away from cows in 5 years' time? Just asking.
I don't think
Our world is changing and changing rapidly, and one thing I've learnt over time is that we have to be prepared to change with it, and that's what I'll do. And at the moment, what we're doing is acceptable, and if it's not acceptable, we will change.
Yeah. Are we all finished in questions? Oh yeah, one back there, yeah.
Yeah. Michael, you say you introduce silage at 21 days. Do you, at that stage, do you eliminate straw, or do you continue it for a while?
So the only access to straw the calves have is the bedding that's under them, and we are very liberal with the bedding. There's one we've always learnt and always had. If you have a dry lie, it's a huge help to keeping healthy calves. And that doesn't change until the calf goes to the field. So we are very liberal with the straw.
Okay. I think we're all finished. I'd just like to... Oh, sorry, Liam, the last question. Yeah.
Just there, sorry. There to Michael.
Yeah.
There to Michael. The 8 heifers that didn't go on calf, were they heavier heifers or were they average weight heifers?
So I've looked at it, and to be honest, maybe over other years than this year I looked at it, and I cannot find out why them ones aren't going calf. And this has been one of my better years for empty heifers. We've often had 6 to 8% of the heifers empty, and I can't pin why they're empty. The one change we've made in the last couple of years is we have introduced the salmonella vaccine at 6 months of age rather than at 18 months of age, and that has helped my empty rate in my in-calf heifers.
Right, yeah. But did you weigh them heifers that weren't in calf, no?
They were all weighed during the year at different times. I haven't looked at them particular this year. Other years I have looked at it, and I still can't correlate light heifers with empty rates.
Okay, I will wrap it up. We'll say that I'd just like to thank Ali and Michael for 2 excellent presentations. It's great to see individual farmers such as Michael trying something new, and we'll say that Ali and his group will say that testing things, and we'll say making incremental improvements. So I'd ask you to give them a very big hand, please.